Hey, you guys. So, Unpretty Urban Witch here. Um, just wanted to talk a little bit about Mars retrograde since we're in it. Um, this is day 2 of Mars retrograde. Um, Usually, when I do these kind of videos, I do them just off the cuff. Um, but this time I actually got some notes down, so I'm going to be trying to kind of go with those a little bit. Um, Basically, um, I want to kind of do some uh, regular sort of check-ins about Mars retrograde that we're going through right now. Some basics to keep in mind is that you're not the only one who's going through this right now. This is happening to everybody, and not just you or whoever you got beef with. Um, the other part of this is that this is going to last till um, about early November, earlier mid-November. Now, it's basically got the same kind of feel as a Mercury retrograde, this Mars retrograde that we're going through. It's not exactly the same, but it's got that same sort of feel um, in that the basic rule that you want to kind of look for is that you want to kind of adhere to is that you move forward by looking back. Okay. Um, so there is going to be um, blockages happening towards your forward movement, stuff that you're trying to do. Basically, the movement of Aries is that, or the movement of Mars in Aries, especially, has been all summer. It's been basically moving along in this direction, and then as of yesterday, it stops and it starts to just go backwards, and it's going to go backwards and kind of loop back around. And it's going to take a couple of months for it to kind of get back to moving forward, get back to moving to how it was supposed to be moving in the first place. That's what a retrograde is, basically, right? So Mars and Aries, um, Mars and Aries are both dealing with movement, definitely dealing with forward movement, um, and it's proud movement. And the thing is, when blockages happen, Aries and Mars are going to want blood. Um, and they are going to want that in the form of conflict and in the form of conflict with others. In Mercury retrogrades, we're used to seeing a lot of frustration around like blockages about shit not working, about mechanical failures, plans not coming through, stuff like that. And with this, those frustrations are likely going to manifest in this sort of like want and need to sort of create conflict out of that. Um, the thing to remember, uh, if you're blocked on anything, if you've got this forward momentum, if your plans fall through, if shit just doesn't work, if you're not connecting how you wanted to, um, remember to take those moments to heal and take care of yourself. All right. Um, if nothing else, take those moments to perform some self care on yourself. That's what those moments are for. That's why we get blocked on shit during retrogrades, things like that. It's important to remember also, especially through this Mars and Aries retrograde, is that anger can be a response to triggers. Okay, to keep that in mind as you're moving forward and you're trying to heal yourself and you're trying to do all of the work. That's really important. That's going to give you a key, a sort of insight as to what you should be focusing on in those moments when you're blocked. Like calling up and saying, like, what kind of response am I having to this? Where is this response coming from? What is it tied to? Is it tied to old traumas? How far do those traumas go back? So pay attention to that kind of stuff. Um, for spiritual workers, spiritual practitioners, metaphysical folks, witches, anybody who's kind of into that. You want to pay attention to really armor up this season, all right? Like during these next few months, wear your black tourmaline, your obsidian, wear black. For those of you who know about that, like just the color black itself, like helps kind of like reflect energy. Anything to basically keep negativity and like bad energy off of you, shit like that. And that's not just those three mentions aren't all of it. You can Google search and figure out what it is exactly you need. Do you need anti-stress? Are you looking for, just keeping negative energies down, stuff like that? So you could search for that kind of stuff. That's out there. So again, like the big thing that we want to really kind of look out for as we're moving through this Mars in Aries retrograde is anger and rage and stuff like that, conflict, these kind of things. For me, again, I want to do this kind of regularly through this particular retrograde. I really want to keep up on it for a couple reasons. Part of it is that you know, retrograde season, with these particular alignments not being anything that we've seen since for a long time, for like 75, 140, up to 200 years. Like we haven't seen some of these alignments since then. And we probably won't see those kind of alignments ever again in our lifetime. Not this heavy, not this intense, not all at once. Another thing to pay attention to is, I forgot to bring my charts here, is that through my research, I found that the heavy stacks of retrogrades tend to happen in a time where they tend to happen in like the summer all the way into like winter, with the heaviest layering happening like during the winter time, during the autumn and winter time, which, as we know already, like anybody, you talk to anybody about it, somebody will mention, oh, affective seasonal disorder, or what a seasonal affective disorder, whatever it is, that just affects everybody and kind of puts everybody in a spot. Kind of not surprising to see that the retrogrades happen right around that same time. But again, want to really keep this as plain English as possible for everybody. Like you can go into this, you can, research this kind of stuff. You can reach out to me, talk about all that kind of stuff. But basically the reason why I want to keep up on this is because of my expertise as a person who has basically dealt with their own anger management issues for about 23 years or so. 10 years of that was actually me working in various mental health settings, stuff like that. And I'm in Aries, and I've had to deal with that kind of fire energy my entire life. So, especially once I started recognizing all this stuff happening, you guys might have seen like the videos that I did during the past like few weeks popping up. I've got some insights on this kind of stuff, and I've got insights on this kind of stuff where not everyone might know this. Basically, I've lived my entire life as a powder keg who was trying to fit in with other human beings, and again, this is something that I've had to work with and work on my entire life in order to have any sense of community whatsoever. And part of why I want to share this is because I know that a lot of people are probably experiencing the same shit that I've experienced my entire life. And it's probably pretty new to a lot of people. And again, you could chalk this up to, you don't even need to believe in astrology. You could just chalk this up to all the events that are happening in the world right now. Everybody being cooped up and stir crazy and kind of just being fed up with each other's shit, like all of that kind of stuff. That's fine. You can. But for those of us that follow, like we've watched this stuff and we're like, This is right on time. This is happening. Of course, this is going down, of course, because these are lining up with the retrogrades, like all of this stuff, even like the onset of the pandemic and all that. And we'll we won't really go into that. So there's two parts to keep in mind with the Mars in Aries retrograde. Really, with any retrograde, like this rule holds fast with any retrograde. Avoiding trouble, like if your whole point is to just avoid any kind of trouble or nonsense or, just any kind of suffering, that's not really the way to go with any kind of retrograde. Retrogrades basically stop you from doing whatever the fuck it is you thought you were supposed to be doing at that time. And they pull your coattail and say, hey, so it looks like there's a whole bunch of healing and a whole bunch of trauma and a whole bunch of other shit that you haven't dealt with, right? You're carrying all this luggage and you keep, this luggage you keep carrying with you, you keep throwing it in the road in front of you. And then you got to, in the days to come, in the months to come, you got to trip over it and it gets in your way. So how about you not do what you thought you were supposed to be doing right now and you deal with some of this luggage, right? And in dealing with that luggage, what you get to do is not throw it in the road in front of you to stumble on, right? Like that's kind of the whole point of any retrograde that comes up, is clearing out your own luggage, clearing out your own baggage, so you're not throwing it in your own way in the future. And it kind of forces you to, it kind of stops. The analogy that I had the other day, I was talking to my mom about this stuff, who basically set me on the path anyway. I was saying that it's like all of the shitty, dirty work in the house that you don't want to clean. Like you keep putting it off and you keep putting it off. That's all our old traumas and shit like that. And these retrogrades show up as some kind of crazy ass house inspector that's like, all right, oh, you thought you were going to be watching TV? Oh, you thought you were going to work? Oh, you thought you were going to go do this thing? Nah, let's stop that and let's have you focus on cleaning up your own shitty, dirty kitchen, shitty, dirty house, whatever it is. That's what retrogrades really do. So, let me see. Lost my place with the notes and shit. So again, avoiding trouble in a retrograde is not the way to go. You're going to want to lean into the healing. You're going to want to heal or address anything that comes up, including and probably especially how you're responding to anything. If you're having a really intense response to something, if you're feeling triggered, if you're going through any kind of like negative response towards a situation that's happening, you're going to want to ask yourself, what is this shit tied to? Where is this coming from? How far back does this trauma go? Those blockages that you get, once again, those are places where you do need to stop and reassess, take a step back and say, okay, what do I need to be focusing on instead? What do I need to be healing instead? Again, you look backwards so that you can move forward. Like that's what every retrograde is about. The second part, and this is very specific to the Mars and Aries retrogrades, is that you want to pick your battles. You want to choose, intentionally choose the hill you plan to die on. Okay? Now, I talked about this before in a couple of my other YouTube videos. We've seen this energy coming through all summer long. Give me 1 second. Let me just do this right quick. My bad. Sorry to do this on camera. All right. All summer long, Aries has been moving through, Mars has been moving through Aries. And we've been seeing that, like suddenly all through the summer, like there's a lot of people that were coming up on conflicts, on just stumbling over, like even like petty arguments, like getting into shit online with people, like here and there. Like there's been a lot of that sort of like aggression happening. Once again, this is largely because most people haven't had that kind of fire energy poured into them, poured into their cups their entire lives. So like they're feeling that fire energy and they're feeling like, I got to do something with this. I got to get this shit out. Or it's like, it may even seem justifiable that like whatever thing is pissing you off right there, that you're going to want to jump into it and just like address that and just tear it apart It might seem like it makes sense, but again, this is not just happening to you. This is happening to everybody. Like, I keep checking different sources, like even unconnected, unrelated sources, unrelated people who aren't even connected to each other, and people are reporting the same kind of shit, even from their neighbors, even from people around them, stuff like that. So again, the second part that you want to pay attention to is pick your battles and really choose what hill you want to die on. This kind of ties back to the whole 2020 retrograde stuff, right? And that 2020 is definitely a world-changing kind of event. We've never seen anything like this before. We haven't seen these kind of retrogrades again in close to about 200 years, which is also close to the founding of the nation. So you think about all the shit that happened back then that lasted for 200 years. Everything we're doing this year is going to set us up so that this will last for the next 200 years or so, the next time this kind of stuff comes around. But remember, focusing on what is important to you, focusing on what you are passionate about, that's what that fire energy is for. That's what we're supposed to be using that shit for during this season. It's not just like, the hills you want to die on, don't let it just be whoever happens to be standing in front of you and pissing you off at that moment. Those are terrible hills to die on. You want to focus on what's going to actually make a better world, even if that's just you, even if it's just you focusing on how you can participate as an individual in a better world, in a better ecosystem, like in terms of like everything existentially, like in terms of socially, socio-politically, even literally, environmentally, any of that kind of stuff. So you want to remember that first, generally people are not used to this kind of change. They are not used to any of this. We've seen this all year. As soon as everything hit, like the entire world was on the same page and everybody lost their minds, right? And especially with what I'm talking about in terms of like working with this fire energy and like working with managing any anger or rage or conflict energies that are coming up. In terms of working with that, it takes work, and that work is prioritizing thinking about this. I can't say that enough. Once I started working on my own anger management issues, it was a matter of I had to even leave notes for myself that was like, remember how you interact with people. Remember to watch when your feelings start to boil up. Remember to look out for these kind of things. And I had to keep it in the forefront of my mind. And that's what you have to do. You have to keep this in the forefront of your mind. There are appropriate ways to express and deal with anger and address grievances. And the thing is that right now, with everybody functioning as a powder keg trying to fit in with human beings, even the most rational people are going to be bound to forget this kind of stuff, like during this season. Like, again, think up till about like early mid-November. Like, this is what the scene is. So one thing that's going to be important is that you're going to want to take any moment you can during the day, even if it's just suddenly a few minutes where you realize you've got to yourself. Take any moment of space that you can for yourself. Take it heartily and take it with gratitude, because it might only be a few moments, it might only be a few minutes, and then you might be in the shit. You might be in argument after argument or conflict after conflict for the next 4, 5, 7, 8 hours, So any moment that you can take a breath, take it. Don't pass it up. Don't think, fuck it, I got a few minutes to myself. Let me just do some other shit because I know I got a lunch break coming up soon, or I got this coming up soon. No, don't count on anything coming up soon. Just take those moments as they come, all right? Another thing that should be helpful, is to approach every interaction as if you could be triggering somebody else's trauma. Okay. I know this is heavy, and I know that some people are going to be like, fuck that. Other people's shit isn't my responsibility. Just easy now, easy. Here's the thing. This is a temporary fucking thing. If you want to go back to, like not giving a fuck about anybody else's shit, that's fine. But for right now, again, you got to remember, everybody who is walking around is possibly a fucking powder keg waiting to fucking blow. All right, and this is the kind of shit you're not gonna want to deal with this. I mean, some part of you, believe me, I know, some part of you feels like, fuck that, I want this, I'll come at anybody, I dare anybody, and I know that feeling. That's a lot of the times that's the feeling that I actually carry in myself, is that I wish you would feeling, but don't do that, because the other thing is that in being on this journey, I've had to realize that tapping into that, or letting that tap into me, like letting that control me instead, that means that you have to deal with consequences, and sometimes those consequences are going to be very regrettable. And that's not some shit that you want to have to unwind after you've done this, after the fact. Okay, so don't lean into that, right? Again, this is temporary. It's temporary that everybody's going to be like this. Again, for myself, most of my life, I've basically had to function as that powder keg. So I've had to sort of like keep myself safe from triggering situations and being in situations where I am going to lose control of my anger. I am going to lose control of my rage. And as part of that too, it was a matter of paying attention to not knowing who else was a powder keg, like not knowing who else was having trouble controlling their anger and their emotions and holding that kind of rage inside of them. So trying not to, like, recognizing that I'm trying not to trigger myself, I'm trying not to trigger anybody else too. And again, that's, go with that kind of feel, even if you have to consider it like as a temporary, I'm just going to be doing this until, like November-ish, and then everything sort of goes back to normal, at least emotionally, at least in terms of like this high energy, high fire conflict energy. The other part is that you might not be in a space to offer support to people, even if you have been offering support to these people for years, for decades, for a long time. You might not be in a space to do that because your shit might be running too hot. Be aware of that. And if you need to, then don't engage in that. Back away gracefully. Tell that person, like, hey, I'm real sorry. I want to be there for you. I want to provide space for you. But I'm just not in a good space right now. You say, I'm not in a good headspace. I apologize. Let me get at you when I can. The thing about being a powder keg, pretending, excuse me, to be a human, is that you almost got to consider yourself like this offensive sort of thing. You almost have to be kind of apologetic in your energy. And again, consider this a sort of like temporary sort of exercise. But you think of like a bull in the china shop, but like with this Mars in Aries energy, dynamite is actually the bull, and the china shop is all the people and things that you would regret blowing up. That's what the china shop is. So again, as we move through this season, where tempers are high, you've probably already been seeing it quite a bit. The sirens have not stopped outside here. I've been here for almost 6 months now, and it's been relatively quiet, and the sirens have not suddenly stopped in about like 2-3 weeks now. All kinds of stuff is happening with this in terms of just everybody is blowing up. Everybody who stands in front of each other for more than a few minutes is basically trying to fight each other or look for some reason to unleash on somebody, or find some kind of thing to just get their claws and teeth into. So again, you want to pay attention to that. And in paying attention to that. Again, I'm going to try to be sort of regular about posting and just sort of helping everybody through it with the experience that I've had in terms of having to carry that kind of like fire energy, in terms of having to carry that anger and that kind of rage every single day and still try to function and basically not fuck shit up in my own life and in the lives of the people around me. In terms of astrological shit, this Mars in Aries retrograde is going to be moving through 3 different astrological seasons. Now, kind of to get you up to speed, if you don't really follow like the rest of the shit that I'm talking about, or you don't really follow the rest of my videos, each astrological season, basically, we grow up thinking like, oh, I'm an Aries, so that means that, you know, this is my month for, you know, for me to be an Aries, you know, or whatever, you know. And the thing is that even if it's not your actual season for your zodiac sign, each of those seasons that we pass through have some lessons to teach us. They have something to, I thought I turned that off, my bad. They have something to teach us, and they have something that we can learn from. So the 3 seasons that this Mars in Aries retrograde is going to be traveling through is going to be Virgo season, which focuses on health and habits. It's going to be passing through Libra season, which focuses on relationships and equality. And then finally, it's going to be ending in Scorpio season, which moves into transformation and forgiveness. So even with that, you should be able to see kind of like this stack of like how the energy should be working if we're working with it, when we're following it. So right now, we should be focusing on our health and habits. In the next season, we should be focusing on actual relationships and equality, and like not just personal relationships and equality, but like this also goes on a larger scale. All of this stuff applies both small scale and large scale. Like we can also be talking about relationships that we have with larger systems, with larger communities. We can be looking at equality, like in terms of that. We should be actually looking at all of these things, both in our personal lives and in terms of like larger scales and larger communities. And then finally, as we've moved through all of this like heavy fire changey energy through this Mars in Aries retrograde, then we want to end up in that place of transformation and forgiveness that we pick up from Scorpio season. And I know it's weird. I've talked to like some people who are like, well, my Scorpio is this, and I don't see no kind of shit about that. We can get into that later. That's not a thing. But for right now, what I did want to peep you to is I actually want to read you a quick little bit from the Moon Journal by Sandy Citron. And I could put a link in there below. And it's not, I'm not just like, this isn't story time. This isn't like, oh, let me read a little passage from the thing. It's not what this is about. What I want to read to you specifically, since I addressed these 3 zodiac seasons that we're going to be moving through, their recommendations for what you should be kind of doing to start the day and sort of end the day. And those are the 3 things that I want to kind of like cover with you. So right now, as we're going through Virgo season, and I wanted to read this shit verbatim so that like you had everything. I didn't want to paraphrase this part at all. So through Virgo season, your morning routine is you want to focus on self-improvement. Okay, so Virgo, during this season, you're going to want to focus on self-improvement, which means take time in the morning to eat a healthy meal, drink water, get some kind of exercise, do some kind of like body work, because this self-care is going to help you stay organized and focused throughout the day. Right? Then while we're in Virgo season, you want to wrap up your day. You want to end your day with an evening routine, and that's going to be letting go of your worries. Okay? And I know that's real tough, especially like right now with everything going on, but that's why this shit is crucial. So to go verbatim with this, you want to close your eyes and imagine that each of your worries is a pebble in a small pile. Imagine that each pebble in the worry it represents gets swept into a dustpan. Empty that dustpan into a shoebox, cover that shoebox with a lid, and put it in the cupboard. Close the door and lock it if you need to. Right? This is how you want to end your day, is by letting go of your worries. Consider that your worries for the day, whatever's happened during the day, whatever you got coming up, it's all put away for the day. You're not fucking with that at all for the rest of the night. That's how you want to come down. That's how you want to bring it down. If there's still anything you need to think about later, it's still there and you can unpack it. But for right now, for the evening, as you move through Virgo season, it's gone. And again, in the morning, you want to start with self-improvement. You want to start with some kind of body work. You want to start with taking care of your core body, which is something that I know a lot of us aren't really good about. We tend to put, a lot of us tend to put other people before ourselves, including our own health, including our own self-care. But that's going to be really important during Virgo season. All right. Then we move into Libra season. For Libra season, your morning routine is that you're going to want to clean something. Libra is the only machine in the zodiac. It's the scales, right? Like when you think about all the symbols, right? During Libra season, you balance your environment by cleaning in the morning, right? You get rid of anything that you don't need, okay? So consider that kind of thing. My partner actually told me a good couple months ago, they said there is no esoteric life without chores. And that actually led to a lot of really insightful work as I worked the permaculture garden that I've been learning here in that as you clean, and I know for a lot of us, sometimes cleaning can be very cathartic, right? And that's no accident. It's a time for you to physically be cleaning something, and at the same time, while you're doing that, you could be cleaning stuff on the inside too. So consider that for your morning routine as you move through Libra season, okay? And then when you wrap up the nights, when you wrap up the day at the end of Libra season, try to enjoy dinner with somebody socially, even if, and I know this is the times that we're going through right now, even if that means you're like, hey, can I call you during dinner? Are you down to like do a little fucking dinner like call, like a little Zoom call even, or just like hit you on the phone and just hit you on speaker and just chat you up like while I'm doing this? Consider that, because you're going to want to socialize and you're going to want to enjoy conversation in the evening, and like try to have a sense of beauty and gratitude, and a sense of nourishment as you take in both that meal, literally physically food, and also in terms of like taking in that nourishment of interaction. Now again, I know it's tricksy, right? Because like everybody's a powder keg right now during this particular season, during this particular year. And this isn't like, it's not like Mars retrogrades through Aries every year and we just don't notice it, and like somebody's just talking about this shit now. Like this is not a regular occurrence. For instance, all through next year, Mars is going to be direct. It's going to be moving in the way that it's supposed to. It's not going to be retrograde. A lot of the times it is just mostly doing that. I forget exactly how often it does retrograde. I can look into that, but whatever. That's something that we can fuck with later. So then, what I meant to say with that was, pick who you're going to want to wind down with at the end of the day. Like when you have like that sort of like social, sort of like dinner feel, again, even if it's online. And I mean, shit, if there's nobody, if you're like, everybody in the entire world is pissing me off, everybody in the world is going to fucking trigger me if I try to talk to them, then fuck it. Crack open a YouTube video, or like fucking like throw on like a little movie or something like that where you feel so engaged that you feel like the characters or whoever is on the screen at the time is spending time with you. You know, do whatever you can. In these days, we're gonna have to do the best we can with what we've got, because again, it's intense. We've never seen the world like this before, and we've never seen these kind of fucking retrogrades before in our lives. Like we haven't seen this kind of stack pretty much ever, even if we've seen stacks that are similar to that. So then finally, as Aries, Mars in Aries retrograde sort of wraps up and winds down in Scorpio, the season of transformation and forgiveness. So your morning routine for that is that you're going to want to kind of meditate. A morning meditation habit can help you learn how to observe your thoughts and feelings during this emotional Scorpio season, and doubly during this Mars in Aries retrograde that's happening. And mind you, the thing is, right around end of Libra into Scorpio, we're also getting Mercury retrograde. So it's layered in there. We got that Mars retrograde, and then at the height of Mars retrograde, we will be having a Mercury retrograde. So it's going to be real fucking intense then. So even if you don't know how to meditate, I mean, you can look some shit up. I'm down to kind of explain the shit that I know that like has helped me, because it took me like fucking decades to get to a point where I even understood what the fuck meditation really was in terms of like how I am supposed to do this. And especially compared to like the shit that I used to read. Like I read about this and I'd be like, okay, I'm trying to do this thing, but that's not happening. So I could break that down. But if nothing else, give yourself some quiet space during the morning to just kind of like think and be ready to observe your own feelings and observe your own internal states as you kind of move through. And the way that you're going to want to wrap up the day in the evenings in Scorpio season is to reflect back on your day, right? So you're going to want to carve out time in the evening to write in your journal, come to new realizations, things like that. So again, this was this last closing piece where we talked about like the morning and evening routines. This is the Moon Journal by Sandy Citron. Again, I'll put like some information and links below about that. So the last thing is, some of you who may have watched my videos know that I'm really kind of bad at closing and just kind of dump and leave it off. I wanted to actually get into the habit of doing the proper closure. So if any of this resonates with you, any of the stuff that I've talked about, please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Or if you're grateful for any of the work of service that I may have provided, I will in turn be grateful of any offerings to support the time and energy that goes into the work that I do. If you'd like more personalized readings or insights or forecasts, including like wrapping that into like tarot readings, any kind of shit like that, contact me directly and we can talk about offerings in exchange of work of service. Beyond that, I want to wish you blessings of protection, safe passage as we move through these times, as we move through these days. Please remember to be gentle, patient, and compassionate with both yourself and absolutely everybody that you come in contact with. Take it day by day, take it hour by hour if need be. And just remember that today is today. Get through it. Tomorrow is going to be a different today.